I am male, 36 years old, met my wife Bailey, who is 33 years old 9 years ago through mutual coworkers, and we hit it off immediately. I fell absolutely head over heels with this woman. She was everything I was looking for. I had gotten out of a toxic, dare I say, abusive, long-term relationship right before that with a woman Bailey had been acquainted with, but not friends with. I had her blocked on everything and had no contact with her since breaking up. We got married right after the tail end of the pandemic, bought our first house together, and started trying to conceive. That was difficult because Bailey has PCOS, but last year she finally gave birth to our first daughter. I'm having a blast. Being a dad is kind of a dream come true. I finally got my happy life with my perfect wife. My perfect wife until last Monday. My laptop's battery shit the bed, so I opened up Bailey's work tablet with an attached keyboard. You can set it up like a monitor to check on some tax stuff. She wasn't home. It was just me and the baby. But we've never asked permission to use each other's devices. We've always been open like that. There's nothing for us to hide. That's what I thought. When I opened up the internet, I noticed she had the incognito tab open. Never in a million years did I expect to discover what I did. My wife has a secret Google account with a photo album saved called XX. So I clicked on it. Did I discover an affair? Nudes? Nope. In this Google album were over 300 photos, 348 actually, of MYX. The woman I was with right before I met Bailey. The woman who tormented me and made me feel worthless. The album said it was started back right around the time Bailey and I started dating and was updated as recently as 2 weeks ago. The photos range from candid shots with family to pictures at her work functions. There were even pictures from her yearbook. I don't know how Bailey could have found her high school yearbook photos. Photos from vacations, Idaho photos from work, pictures of her in crowds, screenshots of videos, and screen recordings of videos. Just her. The other people in the photos would be scribbled out, or the photo would be cropped and zoomed in just on my ex. There was other disturbing things I found too. There was another album with just zoomed up pictures of my ex's hair. Come to think of it, Bailey had recently started wearing her hair different, and my ex had a very identifiable hair type. There was another album with screenshots of comments on social media. Of course I can't find them because I have her blocked, like Facebook groups she's in and public posts, and my ex is very low-key on social media. I can't imagine the lengths Bailey went to find them. My ex literally lives in another country now. There were also different links to the exact outfits she was wearing, like very specific blouses and trousers you'd have to really go looking for to find a specific water bottle. I remembered her purchasing and identical hiking boots and sandals. So basically, my partner of almost a decade has been single white femaling my ex-girlfriend, has secretly stalked her to the point of buying her exact clothes and changing her hair. And now I'm starting to realize Bailey's new interests over the years were just my ex's. Bailey has turned herself into my ex. Everything feels like a lie. Our love feels like a lie. The things we share feel like a lie. I threw up and had a panic attack. I looked at our daughter and felt betrayed. I haven't confronted her yet. I don't know if I want to. I want to run away with our daughter. I want to print out all her pictures, leave them on the table, and disappear. I don't know what to do. I just want to throw up. Is there any way Bailey could have gotten with me in an attempt to get to my ex? Was Bailey possibly obsessed with my ex before she met me? I did not beat around the bush and straight up told her I found the folder. Her face got very red and she was frozen, but also tried to play dumb at first. I was persistent and she started crying and begged me not to leave her. This is what I uncovered. Bailey first started looking up my ex out of curiosity. To keep tabs, I guess, but over time it became more pathological. It's like she got addicted to it, but she also wanted to please me. Okay, maybe I talk about my ex a lot more than I thought, and Bailey wanted to emulate the good parts. She told me she really doesn't know who she is, and my ex's image was something she latched onto because she had me first. Finding information about her became a game. Finding the clothing and objects became a game. By searching things like blue water bottle, green stripe, until she couple compared the product to a photo and find the exact one. The reason why I couldn't find the post wasn't because I had blocked my ex, but because my ex had made a new Facebook under a different name. Bailey found her profile by searching up a family member. She made fake social media and added enough mutual friends until she could see my ex's post, and until her private Instagram accepted her, she weaseled her way into her exercise Facebook group, where the videos were posted, and searched her school on a yearbook website to find the yearbook pictures. Over time, she just collected the images and would get excited to find something new, despite the fact that my ex is extremely private on social media. The folder had originally been called Hex the Ex. In case I discovered it, she was going to make the excuse of saving the pictures to put a hex on her. When she made a burner Google account, she deleted the old folder and named the new one XX. Then she got sloppy and comfortable, and that's right around the time I just happened to open the work tablet. We took a break. It was a while. We made it to couples counseling, and Bailey and I also began seeing separate therapists. She still has not had an assessment with a psychiatrist, but it's on the list. She promised to stop and deleted the album in front of me. Slowly, certain clothing items began to disappear from the closet. I still do not entirely trust her, and that is for me to work on. I'm afraid she has another secret account somewhere, like a backup. The physical mimicking is actually stopping, though, including the hair change. We're still not okay. I want us to be okay, and it's okay if that takes time. If we end up not being okay, then that's something I have to deal with. What I do know is that my wife is incredibly insecure, probably mentally ill, and is misled. I don't really want to walk away from that. I found out that my husband has been keeping a secret box of mementos on the top shelf of our closet, and I don't know what to do about it or if I should even bring it up. I honestly don't know how the hell I'm supposed to talk about this. I genuinely am in disbelief. So backstory, my husband, let's call him Lee, and I have been together since our sophomore year in high school. We were each other's first everythings, and for the most part I feel like we honestly have a picturesque marriage. I'm currently 5 months pregnant with our first child, and have taken it upon myself to DIY the guest bedroom into a nursery, but to do that I wanted to sort through the stuff in there and get rid of anything unnecessary. I think it's relevant to say that I'm pretty short, 5'2", so I don't really store things up high since I can't reach, but my husband's a foot taller than me, so he doesn't have this tendency, which is how I found the memento box on the top shelf. It was just a plain cardboard box, so I didn't think much of it at first. But since I didn't remember putting it up there, I wanted to see if it was something that needed to go into storage or if it was just junk. I don't know what I was expecting, but inside the box there was a photo album, a trash bag, and a black leather bag. The album just had my name plus Lee's written on the cover, so I thought it'd be something sweet, because Lee has a tendency to gift me sentimental things, but no. The album was full of nude pictures of myself, all of them marked with dates and a short journal-like entry. The first one was from our first time from when we were teens, and the latest one was marked from the night I surprised him with my pregnancy announcement. Most of the pictures are poor quality, but some are clearly of me sleeping after the deed. These journal entries talk about how he ranks each experience and his favorite part of it, like some weird logbook. Inside the bags were some of my lingerie and even some old razors and hairbrushes. I don't know why on earth he keeps them, but he has 2 bags full. I don't know how or what to do. I mean, is this normal behavior? Is this some twisted form of romance on his part? A part of me feels like I shouldn't feel as disgusted as I am, but this violates my own boundaries since I explicitly told him in the past that I was against sending or giving him any nude photos. I did end up talking with my husband about this just a few days ago. I'm not going to lie, I wanted to just act like I didn't see anything and go on with my happy life, but after giving birth to my baby girl about a month and a half ago, I guess the stress and everything added up and I let it slip in an argument. I don't remember all that was said, but I was exhausted, and my husband, while he's been super helpful and took over the household chores for me and helps out with baby girl, had just been getting on my nerves. I sort of exploded on him in a way I'm not proud of. Worst of all, he wasn't even doing anything. All he had been doing was reminiscing about how I used to make a Sims family of us when I was in uni. and how creepy it was. He said it endearingly. I don't really know why I got so mad, but I basically said something along the lines of how he's the creepy one because he has a secret stash of stuff hidden from me. I felt really bad because he got all pale and went quiet, and then he sort of said he needed space and went to blow off some steam at the shooting range, which he does a lot when he needs to think, so I didn't question it. He came back home around dinner and said he was ready to talk. I asked him about all of the things I found, especially the photos. I reminded him again that I never agreed to making nudes of any sort, and he apologized and agreed to burn them. Apparently, our history goes back further than even I knew, as he recounted that we actually met before high school. I had no idea, but his mom, who's a divorce attorney, was the very same one my mom used when she separated from her first husband, not my dad. I called my mom after to confirm, and she told me it was true, but her and my mother-in-law never told me because my mom's divorce was messy and she hates talking about it. Anyways, back to the first meeting thing. My mother-in-law at the time often had Lee hang out around her office after school, and it was during one of these days that my mom had to take me with her to speak her in person. Lee was actually the boy that I played with in the waiting room. I can't believe he remembered that because I totally forgot it. So according to him, that first meeting was the day he knew I was special. Lee told me that while he had tried to pass it off as a crush, as he got older, it never really went away, which led him to look into his mom's case files, and my state attorneys have to keep them for 7 years. And he found my mom on Facebook, then my dad in her friends list, and managed to find my first and last name in order to find my Instagram. He had convinced his parents to let him transfer from his private K-12 school to my public high school, using the private K-12 school. Excuse that they had a better athletics program, which isn't actually far-fetched since my high school was one of the best in the state for that. Once he found out where I was going, thanks to my dumb self putting it in my bio, I thought that us meeting was a sheer coincidence and that we fell in love naturally, a classic sort of high school sweethearts. But no. Let's start. Lee had orchestrated it all. I took my daughter with me to stay with my mom and stepdad, while Lee agreed to stay home. And let me think. I spoke to my mom as well as my parents-in-law. Lee's parents are not happy with him, in all honesty, and his mom is especially mad because of client confidentiality. My mom gave me some good advice, that being that I should reflect on it, Lee had displayed any other red flag behaviors. I can honestly say that no, he hadn't, but since I know I'm biased, I asked my friends and those close to me if they noticed anything. So far, everything else about Lee seems to check out. I've never felt endangered by him, even when I told him I needed some distance for a few days. Lee and I have since been going to couples counseling, and he's going to individual therapy. After the whole drama that happened a few months ago, he sort of had a come to Christ moment, where he realized that the way he had been obsessing over the idea of me wasn't the same as a healthy love. We spent a few weeks apart so he could work on himself, and he turned over his devices, passwords, and accounts to me so that I could go through and calm my worries because I was really anxious about the explicit photos. Since then, though, we're back in our house and with our baby girl, and our marriage is back on track and better for it. It was my 18th birthday, and as a newly minted adult, I was enjoying my grown-upness by getting as drunk as I could. I'm with my friends in this pub in town, and we're gathered round a table. There's maybe 6 of us. A couple of tables over, there's a group of girls, and there's maybe 6 of them. One of them catches my eye when I look over, and she's stunning. Long red hair, bright blue eyes, full pink lips. I look away and carry on drinking, but she keeps catching my eye again and again. We do that thing where you both catch each other looking, then pretend you weren't looking at all whilst doing it even more. Eventually, I need another drink, so I get up and head to the bar, and I notice her doing the same. At this point, I notice her body. She's short, but with a great figure. Breasts that are good and round and big, small waist, wide hips, great bum, everything. I'm pretty much fully in lust with this girl, and we've not even met. We get to the bar, and I let her order before me. She gets something like a lemonade, unusual for that pub, but I figure someone's got to be the designated driver, and it's probably her. I order a pint for myself, turn around to head back, and she's there, right behind me. We get to chatting, and she tells me her name's Helena. I make some kind of Shakespeare joke, she laughs, and I'm in. The rest of the night, I talk mostly to her, though it's cool because the other lads have descended on the group of girls at the other table. The evening wears on, and eventually we get to the, well, are we gonna fuck? Or just agree to meet each other again? Or fuck off and pretend this never happened stage. We go for the former. We go back to my place, being very careful not to wake my parents up because I'm still shit and live at home, and have a great night. Long story short, we ended up going out for a while, always meeting out somewhere, then heading back to mine. Eventually, we drift into actually being a couple, and from there we start to do more coupley things. And that's when the crazy leaks in. She starts arguing with me about every little thing imaginable, from not saying hello in the right way, to not being there to wake her up at precisely 1 in the morning, or whatever. Every argument escalates into whatever the fuck she's decided to rant about, and always ends the same way. She threatens to dump me, I coax her back, we kiss, make up, everyone's happy. After maybe a month and a half of this or so, I get bored of it all. I do the decent thing and take her out for coffee to a cozy little cafe, tell her in the best way I can that we're not working out, and it's all pretty surprisingly amicable. Except it's not. The phone calls start, always from a private number, always of crying. At first, to my mobile, then to my home phone. Always a private number, always crying. I know she's faking it, because if I never answered the phone, my parents would have a friendly little chat, then hand the phone to me, and immediately it's like Niagara Fall of fucking tears. Then the emails. Weird, ranty emails of gibberish and threats and pleading to take me back. Hundreds of them. There'd be days when they'd come every 5 minutes, days when there'd be nothing at all. I changed my number to get rid of her, got a whole new mobile number, and we went X directory with our number. Changed my email, too. I still got them for about 6 months after, but eventually they stopped. And that should have been the end of it. Little did I know, I started going online on various forums, games, etc. On one such forum, I struck up a friendship with a girl on there. I know she was a girl because she showed me pictures of herself and whatever, which is pretty conclusive. As evidence goes, we had a great time chatting and whatever, and we had so much in common, it was completely insane. Like, not only did she like the same things I did, but she was this utterly stunning little brunette, like a proper English rose. Anyway, eventually we started going out, having little Skype chats, though she never went on cam, which I was cool with because I looked like shit a lot of the time. Things started out well, but over time she got a bit too clingy for my liking. She'd ask where I'd been if I was a minute late, or got jealous if she seen a picture of me on Facebook with another girl. She got upset at the slightest thing, or angry if I mentioned another girl's name, even if it was, oh, Louise said she liked my work when Louise was the lecturer for my course. Eventually I got pissed off, dumped her, and we had a nice clean break. I avoided those forums, changed my Skype, because remember, I'd had bad times with my previous ex and communication stuff, and that was that. Not learning my lesson at all, I went on different forums, found another girl, and got to know her, too. This one was a tanned blonde, all boobs and legs and sexy as fuck Australian accent. She liked most of the same things I did, with enough difference that we could teach each other how to do things, how to appreciate things, how to like things. She was laid back too, and compared to the latest ex, she was a breath of fresh air. If I got on Skype half an hour later than I said I would, she was cool with it. If I spent a conversation talking about my lecturer, using her name every dozen words, she'd bitch along with me, making me laugh, making me smile, making me love. Eventually, I talked of meeting her. Though it was a long way from England to Sydney and expensive as anything, I was willing to fly to meet her because I wanted to see her face to face, to see the places she told me about, to go to the clubs and bars and restaurants she told me she loved. I wanted to hold her in my arms and kiss her and actually have a proper girlfriend again. She immediately broke up with me. saying I'd only be disappointed with the reality. Then came the latest girl. She was Canadian, brunette, something of a rock chick, completely different to my usual kind of girl. We met on some chat site I used when I was bored, got talking, swapped details, etc. She introduced me to a ton of music I'd never even considered listening to, and I did the same for her. If I complained about something, she told me to man the fuck up. If I turned up late, she told me it was fine because time is something the man makes us believe in. She was the coolest girl I'd ever known. Again, we dated on Skype and whatever. Again, we talked about meeting. Again, she broke up with me saying that it had all just been in fun or whatever. It was cool, it was amicable and fine, and that was that. All this happened over a couple of years, with me being with each girl anywhere between 4 and 6 months, and my between times being maybe 1 to 3 months. I was a quick worker and fucked the rebound shit. Anyway, I came back to my hometown for the holiday, I think it was Reading Week or something. I was wandering along the road when who should I see but Psycho Girl. Rather than avoiding her, I carried on walking. She came up to me, said she had something to tell me, and we needed to talk desperately. I made all kinds of excuses, but each one she batted aside until she wore me down. We went to the pub, and she told me something that basically terrified me. She hadn't wanted to give up on me, so she'd used what she knew of me to find places I'd go online. She'd made different accounts, lots of different accounts, in the hopes that she'd find me, so she could talk to me and try and win me back. Except she'd made fake accounts so I wouldn't immediately ignore her. See where this is going? Yep. Every one of the girls I dated had been her, using pictures of friends, using fake accents, pretending to not know things she knew. She'd follow me across at least a dozen different websites, stalked me across hundreds of posts and threads, and all the time had made me believe I was talking to completely different people. I didn't date anyone for a couple of years after that. I don't know what came of her. After that, she sort of disappeared from my life, and I haven't seen her since. I went out briefly with a couple of other girls, but only ones I'd met face to face who didn't look anything like her at all. I don't know if she still follows me about online, or if she does, if she knows about this account. But if you're looking at this, hi Helena. I was barely legal and worked at a fast food restaurant. We had UPS and FedEx guys come in for lunch every day. I was always polite and friendly with them. 0.7 months in, I had a great rapport with them, some more than others because they were long timers on the jobs. We joked and roasted and jibbed each other. A few months later, there was a new guy. Let's call him Ken. He was old, but hard to pinpoint his age. As soon as he walked in and I looked over to greet him, I felt creeped out. I hid it well, though, and just joked with the rest of the guys and took his order. He thought it was a superb idea to mention that my name sounds like a sexual term. The rest of the guys got kind of quiet and I just looked at him. I just said, yet it's not. Most of the other guys just wandered away, but one that I was particularly close with, let's call him Luke, stuck by and chatted me up. I was grateful that he didn't really give Ken a chance to speak to me and snuck him an extra fry that I paid for later. The next day, Ken came in out of uniform alone. We were slammed at the time, so I didn't notice until he was almost to the register. When he came up, he said, well, hey there, beautiful. I want my usual. I said, I'm sorry, but I've only rung you up once. I'm gonna need you to reorder it one more time. He leaned in and said suggestively, oh, I know you remember. You're being so naughty. Since he's not the first nor the worst creep I've ever dealt with, I was able to recover quickly. That's not appropriate. I don't say that to me. He just laughed and tried to touch my hand. I smacked his hand, took a step back and said, you can't touch me like that either. He rolled his eyes and told me to lighten up. Then he finally told me his order. When I had to go expedite the food, my manager was there. I told him what had happened and that I felt extremely uncomfortable. He told me that it was just some harmless old guy. Cue the next few weeks of Ken getting weirder and creepier. When Luke and sometimes the other guys were there, he wouldn't be so loud about it because they'd tell him to cut it out. Then one of my coworkers told me that he had asked her for my number because we're old friends and I'd just like to get in touch. Thankfully, she told him he'd have to talk to me directly. After that, I had a talk with each person on the crew and my manager to make sure they knew not to give out my personal info. My partner was working at a different fast food restaurant across the street and down the hill a bit at the time. He knew everything that had been going on. There was a day that I needed to pick him up. As I was waiting for him to clock out, I looked over into the parking lot, hypervigilance, and saw Ken just a few parking spaces down with no cars between us. He was already looking at me. He got out of his truck to walk over. I had my door open. Because it was summer and the AC didn't work in my car, the issue was that it jammed sometimes when you went to close it. So yeah, next thing I knew, he was right there. I shoved my hand out to keep him at least that far and told him that he needed to leave. Well, sure I will. I just finished dinner. I finally got to meet your partner. Great guy. Really. He leaned in and whispered, I think you could do better though. Between us. I was about to say something when I saw my partner walk out. I pushed past Ken and walked around the front of the car. When I got to my partner and went to show him who the guy was, he had just hopped in his SUV and was driving off. My partner saw him good enough though and told me it was the sweet old guy who kept asking him about me. It kind of dawned on my partner then. Not like he told him anything private, just yikes, you know? I found out later that he had asked one of my coworkers when my days off were. He was told I was actually off that day and had plans to pick up my partner from work and where he worked. Thanks. The next week, my partner and I went on a date, dinner, and a movie cliche. When we were leaving the restaurant, I swore I saw his SUV, but I also couldn't be sure. I was super paranoid on the way to the movie and kept watching to see if we were being followed. About a third of the way into the movie, this creepy guy popped up and wanted to sit by us. We just got up and left because I didn't feel like catching charges. I was just tired of this guy. About this time, we were preparing to move out of the state for a pre-existing and unrelated reason. We hadn't told anyone, seriously. No one else knew. We hadn't told our roommates yet. We hadn't told friends, family, or our workplaces yet. We had only just decided we were going to move and hadn't even figured out the logistics yet. The only thing we could figure out was that he had been following us and heard it when we were talking about it outside of our house. Ken came into work one day and said, "Oh, you thought I wouldn't find out. When were you going to tell me that you were going to move? Where are you going?" I played dumb and told him I didn't know what he was talking about, but that he needed to stop prying into my personal business. He made it a whole big deal that I was lying to him and wouldn't tell him where I was going. My manager finally stepped in and told him to beat it. Before he walked out, he told me, "I'll just find out anyway. I'll send you a postcard." In the 2 months between then and the move, I didn't see him again. He stopped coming in, apparently quit his job, and just fell off the face of earth. It was nice, but it also didn't sit right. We did officially start telling people we were moving, but made it a point to be secretive about where we were moving to and why. My last day on the job, Ken walked in. He looked mad. I went to my manager and told him that he needed to handle Ken once and for all, or I would. I've been playing nice to keep my job, and that day felt like the day. My manager told him to leave, but Ken insisted he wanted to say goodbye. I didn't want to hear it. I started walking to the back of the restaurant, and he sang after me, "That's all right. I'll just see you in state I was moving to." I was livid and done. I took off my visor and my work shirt. I wore tees underneath so I could change as soon as I clocked out, and tried to round the counter to kick his ass. But my manager, 6 and 3 feet and built like Andre the Giant, no exaggeration, grabbed me up and pushed me back into his office. He threatened to call the police if Ken didn't leave, so Ken skedaddled. I was waiting for him to pop up at my house during the 3 days before we left. I was waiting for him to pop up at the airport. I did a thorough visual scan of the people on the plane. I even almost half expected to see him at the gate upon touchdown in the new locale. For a few months, I was on guard. It's been almost a decade since all that, and I never was contacted by Ken again. My freshman year of college was one of the funnest years of my life, and some of my fondest memories are from that year, but it was also the scariest and strangest year to date. I'm 31 now. I still sometimes wonder how this really happened, and I didn't end up a shut-in. Nut job, and it still freaks me out to this day. I've only talked about it once or twice since it happened 13 years ago. I'm changing names of people and places because, yeah, August 2001. Like most freshmen, I live in the dorms at a state party school. I opted out of the good school I got into. I guess I had a little steam to blow off after graduating from a military college prep boarding school. Plus, after a sports injury, I didn't exactly have any specific plan for life that went past Saturday night, if you know what I mean. A good buddy from military school, we'll call him Bill, went to same college and lived a few floors below in the same dorm as me. So of course we were getting the party started before my parents' exhaust fumes had even evaporated from the parking lot. For the most part, the first month or so of college was pretty much like that, normal. I went to most of my classes, partied just about every night, chased girls around, and that was enough for the moment. But things began to change one night, sometime in mid-September, and college for me would never be normal again. My dorm phone rings in the middle of the night. Hello? On the other end, I can only really describe the voice as the kind you picture when you think about a computer talking. Kind of like the early model car GPS's. Hi, will call me Gary. How are you today? Not fully awake, I'm just confused at this point. Who is this? He repeats, Hi Gary, how are you today? It becomes clear I'm being fucked with, so I hang up and chuckle, yucking Bill. Nice one. I pass back out. I end up forgetting about the call for a few days and never mention to Bill or anyone else. About a week later, I get another call around the same time of night. Hi Gary, I'm watching you. Nice, very cliche. Seriously Bill, how are you not knee deep in Everclear or a Tridelt at this hour? Enough already, Cade, roommate, is going to start getting pissed. I hang up. I casually confront my oh so clever amigo at breakfast the next morning, purposely not trying to bite too hard to give him a payoff that might incentivize continued calls. I also wasn't 100% it was actually him and not another one of my douchebag friends. He gives a genuinely confused response, whatever. So a couple days after second call, I come home and see I had multiple messages on my answering machine. I barely knew that thing even worked. It's computer voice guy. Message 1, my machine cuts off first 1 to 2 seconds of message, which tells me it's a bot set to play message upon answer. Hi Gary, I'm watching you. Message 2, I thought I asked you to answer my calls. Gary. Message 3, where might Gary be on a Tuesday night? Okay, so one of my friends is clearly asshole or bored enough to really push for a reaction here. The next day, I play the messages for Cade, who was around during the calls, which were apparently earlier in the night when he was still awake. He'd been a close buddy since we were in junior high, but we sort of taken separate paths after high school. So anyway, he's aware I'm a wild child and thinks nothing of the first couple messages. By third, he's a little spooked. I then walk down to a couple other buddies' rooms and casually but immediately bring up the subject. Over the next couple of days, I press all close and semi-close friends but get 0 answers and 0 suspects. The calls start coming more frequently over the next couple months, starting at once a week, then to once every 2 to 3 Daltons.Ys, up to every day by Christmas break. I don't say anything to my family at that point, although I really should have. What started out as a decent beginning of college turned into not showing up for any classes, test, nothing. Grades reflect, and I am too busy answering for a 0.67 GPA to talk about some dumb prank that will likely be dismissed as a pathetic attempt at grades explanation. So it goes. Uneventful break and back to school determined to become a new man. I gotta get my shit together with these grades, so I tell Bill I'm gonna have to chill out and focus on school. First night back, I get my first spring semester call from CVG. How is your family in Cyprus? Hometown suburb. Okay, now this is fucking bullshit, man. What kind of douche lords am I hanging out with that even have the discipline to drag out a prank this long? I get the answer to that question a few days later, and the answer is none of them. Calls become threatening and downright dark. I'm very interested, Gary, in being close to you. Yeah, with kind of the weird sentence structure like that. I have tools I can bring. It is going to all be over soon. One day I bring the Bill and all my other buddies up to hear the messages, never deleted a single one for some reason. I guess when things happen over longer periods of time, you don't really feel the cumulative impact until laying out the complete package of evidence. The guys are in shock. I guess I should mention that some of these calls got really specific in making sure to note specific details about my parents' address, as well as the violence they are planning on doing to me. Cut open your esophagus Gary with a butter knife and all sorts of other crap that is sort of blurred together through the hundreds upon hundreds of calls I got over the school year. A chick friend of mine that I really liked in high school goes to a different school hundreds of miles away. We've reconnected thanks to good old AIM and talked from time to time on the phone. CVG had mentioned a couple of times your friend and made threats about this unspecified person from time to time, but your friend turned into, we'll call her Layla. Your friend, Layla. Layla and I are the only two people ever named in these calls, but it did get me wondering if this was a new lead to the source. Layla is clueless when I call her about it. Awesome. I know that background long to read, but you'll understand why I had to explain the situation when I tell you about what happens next. One night, we're all partying and drinking at some hotel. Forgot to mention all that straight A crap went out the window as these events progress. A different buddy, Carl, has a nice big truck we'd all go everywhere in, but he passed out drunk at the hotel after pounding an entire bottle of whatever. I'm not really drinking tonight and want to get back to my own bed. I snatched Carl's keys to drive back to campus, thinking I'll drive back in the morning to get everyone. This was one of the few times I'd even driven that year, so I wasn't tip-top on my directions. I make an early turn and am somehow down a road I've never seen. I realize this pretty quick, but I figure I've got the general direction of campus pegged, so I can just continue the wrong road until hitting the familiar highway that I knew I'd eventually have to hit that is close to campus. I'm finding myself in open fields, paved road and everything, but aside from the road, there was absolutely nothing and it was completely black. Around 3 a.m., there's this really strange four-way stop I come upon. Strange because I'm probably the fourth person in a year to drive on that road. Unnecessary. Anyway, I trudge along, eventually get to the familiar highway, and home free. A few days later, CVG interrupts his usual depraved, threatening to mention that specific four-way day and time that I was on it, which, like I said, was around 3 a.m. and there wasn't a soul in sight. So yeah, I now realize CVG is obviously tracking my movements somehow. Note, I later joined the military, worked in the intelligence community and worked special operations and tracked bad guys all around the world. To this day, I still can't figure out how this dude knew I was in the middle of those fields on that date in the middle of the night. I never mentioned it to anyone. Around March, this apparent rendezvous became CVG's focal point, and he'd make sure to let me know the day way close. The calls were coming in no fewer than 10 or 15 every single day. Seriously. The ringer was now off out of courtesy to Cade, and I turned down the volume of answering machine as his phone calls recorded. But I finally get the message I'd been waiting for. Keep in mind, I've now become somewhat famous at this university by now because of CVG. People were constantly knocking on my door wanting to hear the messages. Friend of whomever I know. It was all people wanted to hear about at parties. For a split second, it was cool, because I'm pretty sure I ended up getting laid a couple times indirectly from introductions conceived through interest in the guy with the stalker. Don't judge me. Moving right along, the day, time, location are set. We will meet in front of Coleman, Hall at midnight, Wednesday -20, 7 April, and we will take our friendship to the next level. I know what you are thinking, and yeah, throughout the year, I had considered the possibility that I was dealing with a female. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and I was definitely that kind of dude when I was 18 to 19 years old, the kind that could attract clinginess and anger. But I started to rule out female for various reasons that only a fellow ENFJ would understand. Look it up if you're not tracking. I can build profiles with a very high ratio of accuracy to available information. This creep just didn't feel like a female to me. It didn't even feel like a peer. I was convinced I was dealing with mid-30s white male computer nerd that I'd come into contact with at some point in my life doesn't really matter, because what I ended up finding out on Wednesday, the 27th of April, which, by the way, was Layla's birthday. Interesting. I was wrong. Of course, everyone wants to be part of this juicy story, and there's a pretty ridiculous amount of testosterone floating around the dorm on game day. This was a real-life creepster and a legit horror story unfolding before their very eyes, and groupthink will subvert caution if properly motivated. These guys are ready to defend me with their lives, just ask them. So while these monkeys are getting all hopped up on Mountain Dew, I stay home that afternoon wondering what I was going to do at midnight. Of course I was going to go, but dude, yeah, I've always been an athlete in good shape, wrestling, oop ball, baseball teams. But I'm still a 19 white male, good parents, grew up middle upper class, white suburbia, had a good life. In other words, I can definitely hold my own in a street fight, but this, whatever this is, doesn't feel anything like a street fight or any other kind of fight I'd been in. This is a disturbed, violent, angry, possibly grown-ass psychopath that has decided to dedicate almost a full year now of his life to targeting and terrorizing ME. So yeah, I'm a little friggin' nervous. My home team crowd steadily built up throughout the afternoon and evening, with probably close to 70 or 80 guys grouped up at our dorm's common area. We were connected to the female dorm at the first floor, smoking cigarettes and talking about beating the shit out of people. Once the party hour approaches though, over half of the guys splinter off into other various propositions that probably included more traditional fun like beer bongs and sorority girls. I'm left with about a 15 to 20 Ember platoon. I had decided earlier that I was not going to allow all these knuckleheads to shadow me, but I could definitely use them in case of emergency. I didn't want to risk him spooking out of the meet, so I let them know they will need to stay inside the doors of the common area while I walk out to the meeting spot. Coleman Hall was adjacent to our connected girls' dorm and about 300 paces outside door to door to get to Coleman. The witching hour came, so I leave the crew to begin the longest couple hundred or so paces of my life. My boys can see me through the glass doors, but wouldn't really be able to see much once I get to the Coleman Hall door. About 100 paces out from my spot, I observed two things at the same time. Point one, some kind of small, quick movement in front of the patio walkway that goes all the way around the building. And two, the movement was in a spot along the walkway where the only normally uber bright bulb is out. I'm not exactly sure exactly how I was able to see him, but I suddenly realized someone is crouched behind one of the contiguous cookie cutter bushes outside the patio perimeter against one of the building pillars. In dark clothes and hoodie, he is a few feet off from the path where I'm supposed to meet him, and positioned to where I really should not have been able to see him, given the pillar blocking any shadow plus the burnout I later found out smashed light. In fact, I could have easily walked all the way to the door without ever have noticed someone down there. Nope. I sort of jump mid-step as this happens, and I see him raise up a little thinking I might have seen him. I see him raise up and take a step toward me, and fight or flight hits. I've learned that my particular fight or flight chooses fight in more mild situations, flight during intense situations, but for shit your pants situations, it's scarier to run away with your back to whatever scary shit I'm dealing with, so I fight. Before I realize what I'm doing, I'm in a dead sprint toward this guy, who I'm guessing sees what I can't yet, which is my platoon busting through the glass doors in hot pursuit. Creepster is running away on the patio alongside Coleman Hall toward the parking lot. I can tell this isn't the mid-30s computer nerd I predicted. Creepster is above average height, above average broad, and built athletically. That's all I could tell, really. I'm not even sure if he was white, because he was at least tan, if not Hispanic, Middle Eastern, etc. I'm really booking it as he right turns on a dime at the edge of the building. I realize I'm moving fast enough to catch him, but everyone else is really far behind. I also realize I'm moving so fast I won't be protected as I turn hard right at the corner of the building. If he stops there, I'm toast. As I turn the corner, I see the van sitting alone in the parking lot in front of me. Its running and brake lights flicker on, then off park into drive, and begins inching forward toward the exit. Home Slice is of course heading for the van, which for some reason sent this whole new level of fear into me. This is it. This is really happening, and I'm going to get murdered tonight. But I can't stop. Something keeps me moving forward. I guess I'd come this far, dealt with this craziness for almost a full year now, completely unable to do anything other than try to ignore it. I'm not exactly going places academically at this point, and my life doesn't quite have all that much purpose to it yet. If I am going to get schwacked, I will at least know, and this crap will at least be over. Plus, I still have a chance to catch this madman before he gets away. If I could get close enough to dive tackle, I would still be on my own to deal with the creepster, his driver, and now I realize there's a third one that was manning the sliding side door. A Wism. I don't care how badass you think you are when you're a 19-year-old jock. Your chances of taking down 3 grown men that are already violent criminals and prepared to victimize are about 1 in not gonna happen, buddy. My turn is wide and slow due to being full on sprint, and I lose ground. I'm probably 20 yards from the lot when he does a flying leap into the side of the van. There couldn't have been any rows of seats for a leap like that. Creepster number 3 slams, sliding door, shut his van, peels out of the parking lot, bangs a right, and gone in an instant. The relief of not being kidnapped, bound, and gagged in that van with 3 psychos who most likely had some pretty horrific plans for me is now just as strong as the dread of the fact that this is still not over with. I was speechless, and so was my platoon as they catch up a minute later. A few of them caught up enough to witness the parking lot scene, but no one was talking. Testosterone has now been replaced with genuine and earnest concern. They all just stood there with me, catching their breath and making sure I was all right. One guy asks if anyone got a plate number. Not even I did. Not enough light. We finally start walking back, and I'm reliving the scene as we retrace our steps. As we get closer to the original meeting spot, I see something that scares me more than anything else in the entire equation has up to this point. On the opposite side of the pillar where a creepy McCree person was crouching, there's a video camera sitting on a stand pointed right at the spot I would have been standing at when I should have not been able to notice him. It's still recording,